George Clooney and Brad Pitt's new movie Wolves is on Apple TV Plus September 27th.
That's where I want you to be now.
So if you want to see George Clooney and Brad Pitt, go to Apple TV Plus.
You got to start the story there.
Or if you want to see Brad Pitt and George Clooney, go to Apple TV Plus.
I am enjoying the show.
And if you want to see their new movie Wolves,
You can't do it, I'm going to help you out. I can do it, so do it.
definitely go to Apple TV Plus.
Admit it, it's cool. Okay, fine, it was very cool.
Wolves, streaming September 27th on Apple TV Plus. Rated R.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
Cancelo, oh, it's brilliant from Mo Salah, and still Salah, oh, sensational! Son had a goal and scored a beauty.
Oh, what a strike from Yuri Tielemans!
De Bruyne, that is what Martinelli forward, still going up. Oh, he's done it again. And City
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, EPL Index proudly brings to you the best prediction podcast in the world, a Tad Predictable, with your host, Tadiwa Chanakira, and his guest.
It's Gameweek 5, and you know what that means. It's time for another brand new episode of Tad Predictable. Thankfully, we've seen the international break hit the review mirror. We've had a round of Premier League fixtures. Some of the players have been able to dust off, hopefully, those international cobwebs or the voodoo of the international break. You all know I'm not the biggest fan of the international break, but the fixtures start to get pretty busy going forward. There are teams that are playing Carabao Cup games, European football is back, and of course, they still have to navigate the English Premier League, which is undoubtedly the toughest league in the Premier League. But helping me along this week to go through the fixtures for Game Week 5, I am thrilled to be joined by Man United fan Michaela. I mentioned, obviously, the Premier League doesn't have an open window in terms of transfers. Their transfer window is shut. But fortunately for this podcast, we're able to do transfers as and when we want. And we're happy to welcome a new guest onto the show. Michaela, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I feel so blessed to be here, and I'm excited to crack on and get into the juicy games of this Premier League week. We have some really spicy games that are coming up this week, so I think we definitely will be seeing some good topics being discussed here.
Yeah, and we start off pretty spicy with a London derby. Obviously, West Ham, the team that is not travelling outside of London until about November in the Premier League, I believe. That's just how the fixtures have gone. But let's discuss this game. I mean, it's a West Ham team playing at home, not having to have too much travelling going on, which I hope for their sake is a benefit, against a Chelsea side who seem to be playing Football Manager at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Chelsea, like I said, Chelsea and their hundreds of players, they have a lot of players to choose from. The only thing is, I just don't think any of them have chemistry yet. And I feel like they just don't know what's spotting inside the club and also within the pitch. And I mean, I just think that's causing a bit of issues with that, and their midfield's being carved open because of it. And they're not gelling. But I mean, there have been some bright sparks in saying that. I mean, Jadon Sancho coming off the bench, giving the assist to Nkunku, who I think is also going to have a great season this season. So, as much as there is negative there, they did win, and this could literally jumpstart their season, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be hoping it does. And as you mentioned, with the likes of Jadon Sancho coming in, it's not like they were short on wingers. They seem to have a plethora of attacking options. And from the way I see it with Chelsea, I agree the chemistry is going to take a while to get going for them. But at the very least, they've got a plethora of attacking players that they can go to when things are not working out. And when you got fresh players like a Jadon Sancho, who is a quality player, coming off the bench against tired legs of the opposition, I think it's just going to be too much for some teams this season when it comes to Chelsea. And I think that's kind of hinting where I'm leaning in this game. But I'm going to let you get your first prediction on a Tad Predictable. What scoreline are you thinking for this one?
Well, I definitely think it's going to be the survival of the scrappiest this game. But I'm actually leaning close to a 2-1 Chelsea win, to be honest. I think as much as they both need to win, I think Chelsea just edge it because they didn't play well last weekend, but the fact that they didn't play well and they still ended up winning says a lot. And I think having, like you said, some players like Jadon Sancho coming off the bench, I think that it's going to be very helpful for them. So I think I'm aiming for a 2-1 win.
Yeah, I think we're starting the podcast in a harmonious way because I had 2-1 to Chelsea on here as well. I think the thing for me is with West Ham, I can assume they're going to try and make this game a physical game. Yes, we know Lopetegui has come in with a very possession-heavy style of football, a bit more patient build-up than what West Ham are traditionally used to. But I wouldn't be surprised if this game starts to get a bit feisty. We've seen Chelsea, for example, against Wolves, where it just inexplicably became a feisty game when no one was expecting it to be. And even in that game, even though Chelsea won it impressively, if you go look at, for those that go look at expected goals and stuff like that, it wasn't an impressive showcase for Chelsea in that game, despite the high scoreline. And as you mentioned in their last game, they struggled against Bournemouth, probably could have lost that game. If you look at some of the chances that Bournemouth have and then they end up winning it. I can see a similar thing in this one where they might struggle to wrestle control of the game, but they end up going and winning it 2-1.
Yeah, no, definitely. I fully agree with you. And I mean, at the same time, because it's a derby, you got to expect some spiciness to come out of it. And I mean, at the same time, I think because West Ham haven't also hit the ground running, and also they did a lot of buying in this transfer window, so a lot of people have expected them to do a lot better, and they haven't really got there. I definitely think there's a lot more expected of West Ham this game to start picking up the ante. And also, I think it's going to be interesting with Wan-Bissaka playing against Jadon Sancho.
Oh, that could be quite spicy because they've definitely played a lot against each other in training.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's going to be quite interesting because Wan-Bissaka, the spider, he is definitely not going to take any prisoners. I mean, we've all seen how he pockets a lot of players like Kevin De Bruyne, Haaland. I mean, he's got that capability within him. But in saying that, Jadon Sancho's just got that skill set. So it's going to be great to see.
I can't wait. Let's move on to our next game. We've obviously seen Aston Villa have been in Champions League duties. They ended up winning 3-0. Obviously, that's peeling back the curtain here a little bit, revealing the time of recording. But we haven't seen the rest of the games. Some of them are on screens on the other side of the room. And Carabao Cup games are on as well. But Aston Villa, they end up winning 3-0 in that game. Do you start to look at these Champions League fixtures or midweek fixtures just in general, looking at the teams that are playing there? I know Ollie Watkins, for example, came off, or Rodgers came off in that game, Tielemans. Are these players that you're then thinking are going to be starting against the Wolves side, who I think they've low-key looked quite impressive? The table doesn't say so, I know that. But I've enjoyed watching Wolves play so far this season.
I must say, Wolves, there's much like Tottenham in the sense that they've always had a special way of playing football, in the sense that they go out there with no fear. Because, I mean, with Wolves, you're not a bit like in the general sense, you're not going to expect them to like win games in the sense that like, oh, it's just Wolves. But their style of play and the way they ping balls and build possession and quite quick on the counter, it's going to be very interesting against an Aston Villa team. I definitely think the midweek games, like the either Carabao Cup or Champions League or Europa, I think it definitely later on in the season will definitely play a huge impact. But because Tielemans, Ollie Watkins, and players came off, I don't think it will affect them that much. And the fact that Ollie Watkins got an assist, I think if I'm not mistaken, Tielemans also scored. I might be wrong, but they are hitting form massively. I mean, Ollie scored 2 goals on the weekend, so he is hungry to show more of what he is capable of. We all know the great player that's inside of him.
Yeah, and especially considering he's one of those players who I know along the likes of Solanke that were vying to get a lot more minutes in during the Euros for England. So I think he's going to want to continue to make statements. I think Villa looking impressive. I like, as you've mentioned, the direct nature of Wolves' play. It will be interesting to see how well they can execute that against the high line that Aston Villa play. Whether or not, Larsson's going to end up being caught offside about 50 times or not. That's probably going to be where the game can be won and lost. But I personally, I don't know if it's a hipster choice, but I'm really, really putting this game high up in terms of games I want to be watching this weekend. I've gone with a 2-2 draw. It might not be a popular one, but I just think Wolves need to get a result finally that at least gives them credit for some of the good play that they've been showcasing this season.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I don't think a draw is out of play here, to be fair. I think it's definitely going to be a very tight game. And like you said, I mean, Wolves have been unlucky in some of their results. I mean, like you said, the directness, they got the quality. It's just the finishing or defending that's costing them at the end of the day. But for me, I'm actually going for an Aston Villa 3-2 win. I think the legs might be a little tired, not too much, but I think there could be some sloppiness within their play, but I still think they have enough to put something on, So, yeah, definitely think also the fact that they didn't do too well against Everton. I know they won in the end, but being down 2 goals in the space of 30 minutes is not necessarily always a good thing. So I think this game, they definitely want to up the ante. So I'm going for a 3-2 Aston Villa win.
Well, we've both gone for a really, really spicy score predictions. I'm excited by that. And as I've said, guys, definitely look out for that game. That's one I'm going to be looking out for. Let's move on to Fulham versus Newcastle. Now, Fulham, they seem to always get punished for not finishing off their chances. And maybe this is going to be a theme heading into some of the other fixtures that we discussed. But Fulham, for example, are one of those teams who they look threatening at times in games. We saw we've seen them this season not be able to put teams away when they're in advantageous positions and then end up getting, either drawing the game or losing the game. And unfortunately for them, they end up drawing the game against West Ham very, very late. Danny Ings getting the goal there. Coming up against a Newcastle team. I don't know if you can explain them, Michaela. I can't figure them out because I watch Newcastle games.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed with Newcastle at all, but somehow they're winning them. I don't know how it's happening, but they just manage to win games, despite how bad or well they're playing in any of the games. And for me this season, I don't think they've played well yet.
No, Newcastle, they're one of those teams that everyone loves to kind of not like. Because, I mean, it's frustrating when a team is playing so badly, but yet they're still getting the results. I mean, listen, if you got to think about it this way. I mean, the fact that they're not playing well and they're still getting the wins, what are they going to do when all their players are turned on? I mean, that's a frightening thing to think about. It can go either way, though. It can either go that way, where it could be frightening, or they're going to get caught out. Some manager's got to play some brilliant tactic that will carve open their midfield. So, I mean, it could go either way. But I must say, I think Isak is a very good player for them that I really enjoy playing. I love his movement off and on the ball. I think that he's done well this season. And also Gordon. I really like Gordon. I think he's a key to Newcastle this season.
Yeah, and he's certainly, especially with their basketball style of football that they've been playing recently, where it's kind of end to end and in most of their games, him stretching teams, running in behind, driving at you. He was very unfortunate to hit the post in their last game. He's definitely going to be a key factor for them. What are you feeling in terms of score predictions for this one?
Sure. Okay, so for this game, I mean, Fulham need to start really finishing off their games. But I'm actually going to go a Newcastle 1-0 win.
Yep, that makes sense. I'm also going with the Newcastle win because at this point in time, I'm just not going to predict Newcastle doing anything but winning until I see them not win. Because somehow, as I said, I can't explain it. I don't know what's going on. And you've pointed it out perfectly. Imagine when their players do, they've got quite a few players that were on the injury list. Imagine some of those players come back. Unfortunately for them, a lot of them are, or two of them are only coming back next season. But Callum Wilson should be creeping back soon. We know Isak hasn't necessarily been firing on all cylinders, but I think that will come with him. He's too lethal a striker to struggle for any long periods of time, in my opinion. And as you say, he plays really well. He's always involved in build-up play and creating chances. So it's not like he's not going to get opportunities to score. So yeah, I'm expecting him to start firing soon enough. Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle. I can see it being another situation where Fulham take the lead because that's what Fulham do. They take the lead and then they end up not finishing the game off. And then also because Newcastle, that's what Newcastle do. They concede, they're playing badly, they're getting overwhelmed, and then somehow they go and win a game. So yeah, I'm going to go with the logic on that one. Let's move on to Leicester versus Everton. I mean, there's no logic when it comes to Everton and the results they've been getting recently. Back-to-back games where they were 2 goals up and ended up losing them. You have to start feeling for them at this point in time, surely.
Yeah, I mean, Everton, from point deductions to, having to save money and try to get rid of players because of that. I mean, unfortunately, they're just not looking great whatsoever. I do think, though, in saying that, they do have some gem of some players, like McNeil. I think he's a really solid player. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin, if he stays fit for them, which is very much an if, I think he's lethal for them. But, I mean, you got to believe it's Everton. You can't I know it's early talk here, but you can't let Everton get relegated. I mean, that's will be insane if that happens. I mean, it's going to happen eventually. They're going to have to win a game eventually. But, I mean, the fact that they're playing Leicester, who I find have played certain games pretty well, and have some really quality players, I think Everton's going to get punished, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as you mentioned with the relegation thing, they've never been relegated from the Premier League. Since it obviously rebranded from the First Division. So they'll be hoping to keep that streak alive and staying up. And at some point, surely the rub of the green has to turn in their favor because they're starting to play good football. I mean, it must be frustrating to be playing better than what we maybe were seeing from them last season and previous seasons. And still not getting good results or even losing games in such, frustrating ways. For Leicester, I think for them, the blueprint is there for everyone to see. It's to try and play on the counter-attack using Vardy's pace, getting players in and around him to support him. But I don't know how long he can keep going at that rate because we know the thing with age for players is, yes, they might still be able to do it every now and then, but the consistency is what starts to go. Can they do it week in, week out? And I think at some point it might dry up for Vardy. I wonder if it's going to be in this game against Everton. I want Everton to stay in the Premier League. I'm one of those Liverpool fans that don't mind Everton doing well as long as they're one position below Liverpool. I don't care what Everton do. I want them doing well. It's good for the city of Liverpool. If Liverpool win the league, they can come second. If Liverpool win the Champions League, they can lose in the finals. As long as they're just one position below Liverpool, they're like the little brother. Like, as long as they're at arm's length from that perspective, it's fine with me. So in that spirit, I'm going to give them a very gritty 1-0 win, because I'm too scared to give them 2 goals, because God knows what will happen if I do give them 2.
I mean, listen, Everton, like you said, it has to just click eventually. It just has to. Like you said, I think they had some really good moments in like the last game, especially. I think they're not far from maybe like doing something a little bit more special. And like you said, I don't want to see Everton get kicked out of the Premier League. I mean, that in itself, like you said, it will be historical. But I mean, Leicester, I think Jamie Vardy, he is always going to be that lethal weapon for them. But like you said, age is going to start coming into it, the tiredness. And I mean, in saying that though, I think Ndidi for them is also a really good player. And I do think that Ayew and also Skip is going to also be very, very much important for them. So I am actually going to go for a Leicester 3-2-1.
Oh no, don't do that to Everton. That's 3 games in a row. Are Everton scoring first, and are they going 2-0 up again? I guess that's the next question.
I think Everton might score first, but I feel like as soon as Everton score, I think Leicester will come back quite strong. So I do think they'll score first. But I do think it will, before the game ends, it will be Everton score first, then it'll be Leicester, then Everton.
Okay, all right. That's probably maybe a better way to end the game, because it will be them scoring a second, chasing the third, opposed to seeing 3 goals go in a row like they've seen in recent weeks. So maybe that's an improvement from that perspective. I don't know if their fans will feel that way, but let's move on to the next fixture. It's Liverpool versus Bournemouth. We mentioned Bournemouth slightly earlier when we were discussing Chelsea and their fixture with West Ham. But I mean, Bournemouth, in my opinion, should have won that game against Chelsea. They had the chances and opportunities to do so. They end up losing it quite late on with that Nkunku goal. I think this is a great opportunity for Bournemouth, because you're playing a Liverpool side that also have European obligations this week. West Ham, Bournemouth don't have Carabao Cup this week. And I was just checking to make sure I'm correct in that. Yeah, they don't. They've got a full week to prepare for this game. They've looked impressive in their games so far this season, in my opinion, even with the Solanke-shaped hole in their team. I think Semenyo has stepped up quite well for them this season. And for Liverpool, yes, it's the disappointment of the Nottingham Forest game. They need to respond, but is their response game going to come in the Champions League? Because, I mean, it's 1-1 at time of recording for the Liverpool game. It's 38 minutes into that game. So if they end up having to go deep into this Milan game, how much is that going to take out of them heading into a game against the Bournemouth side that's going to have a week to prepare?
I mean, also, I feel like Liverpool have a lot to prove, especially after losing last weekend. I don't think anyone really expected them to lose, especially after giving United a thrashing. So I thought they would have actually come out firing for the game that they lost. But I mean, Bournemouth are yes, the results may not always be there for Bournemouth. It's a bit like up and down with Bournemouth. But I definitely think they've got some good players, and I do think that they have their style of play is really good. And I think that they could surprise a few teams this season, to be fair. I think that, like you said already, that Semenyo was really good that game. I also think that Tavernier, I might be pronouncing.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, just checking. I think he's also looked pretty good in areas of his game. So I think that they definitely will bring the heat to to Liverpool, purely because also a lower team, especially playing at Liverpool, I think they have nothing to lose in the sense that, most teams go there knowing that they're going to end up losing. So I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink at it. So I think it could just challenge Liverpool a bit because, like you said, they're busy playing midweek games. So it could take a bit out of Liverpool's legs. But I mean, you got Salah in Liverpool. You got some quality players there, and I mean, I don't know. I think Liverpool are going to do really well this season. I mean, they're really starting to show their qualities in the games. I think they're quick. I think they're direct, and I think they have some great finishes. Also, Alexander-Arnold is looking really good, which is always a great sign for Liverpool. So I'm really looking forward to this game. It's going to be a juicy one, but yeah.
Yeah, and obviously apologies to AC Milan fans because I commentator cursed them because as I mentioned, it was 1-1. Liverpool went and scored from a set piece. So if you want someone to blame, it's definitely me. So Liverpool are 2-1 up in that one. Yeah, I think. Look, I'm hoping that the performance that we saw from Liverpool after the international break was a lot more to do with the fact that it was after an international break because they looked really sluggish. They didn't look too threatening going forward in attack. The passing wasn't as crisp. The movement wasn't as fast as it needed to be to break down a team that was willing to sit back. I imagine Bournemouth are going to come to play, which is probably going to help Liverpool a lot more because it's a different challenge to what they faced against Nottingham Forest. I think that fact that Bournemouth are going to be more willing to play than what Liverpool faced against Nottingham Forest is going to help them out. And Liverpool should, in theory, have the squad depth to manage a Champions League game in midweek and a Premier League game over the weekend. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the 2-1 Liverpool win. I'm not so confident that they keep a clean sheet in this one, but I think they do end up getting one over the line.
Yeah, I'm actually quite similar in your scoreline, and right, not similar. Actually, I agree with you. I'm also going for a 2-1 Liverpool win. I think I definitely think Bournemouth will get on the score sheet. I think, like you said, the fact that Bournemouth won't, they're gonna go for it, and I think that also suits Liverpool because it kind of feeds the Giants. They want you to go for them, and that's generally when Liverpool start to really pounce and carve teams open, especially through the wings. So, I mean, I think it'll definitely be a 2-1 win, but I think it will be a great watch.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, or maybe not so much looking forward because I'm a bit nervous for it. But if I was in neutral, I think. Yeah, if I was in neutral, I'll definitely be looking forward to that one. But Michaela, this is one of the 500 games that are being played at 3:00 in the UK. So it's not going to be shown on TV. And you and I having, African allegiances are more privileged. Obviously now living in the UK, we don't have that privilege as much, but we're used to Super Sport where you get to watch every Premier League game because every Premier League game is shown. Not so much here in the UK, that 3:00 zone where, games aren't being shown. But if listeners link up with our presenting sponsors, Liberty Shield, obviously this podcast is presented by EPLindex.com in association with Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. If you guys check out their services at libertyshield.com, if you use the coupon code EPL25, you get 25% off of your router or your software VPN. It's a virtual private network, which is a technology that allows us to stay safe online by encrypting our internet traffic to protect our online identity, hide our IP address, and shield our online data from third parties. You'll be able to change your location, thus allowing you to access content from all over the world, avoid geo blocks and government imposed restrictions to access any website. I mentioned SuperSport because that's, thanks to Liberty Shield and using their VPN tool, I'm able to watch SuperSport here in the UK. And that's where I watch most of my Premier League games because I know it's guaranteed that it's going to be showcased.
Yeah, SuperSport is a great thing for South Africa, especially with they literally show every sport possible. But I mean, Liberty Shield, that's amazing that they give you that opportunity that you can actually connect and watch from SuperSport, especially living in the UK, like you said. That's an amazing thing. And I mean, we're unfortunately not privileged enough to have all games televised here, especially at the same time. So Liberty Shield, yeah, I'm glad that they have that opportunity so you can actually end up watching a good game.
Definitely. And obviously, guys, if you want to also unlock like bouquet of Netflix shows, documentaries and stuff like that are geo-locked to the US, for example, you can also do that with Liberty Shield. And we thank them for sponsoring the show. Michaela, we're going to take a quick break now. We're going to allow you to gather your thoughts before we head into a Man United State of the Nation address. I know we haven't gotten to the Man United game yet, but we'll give you a chance to sort of lead us on a conversation regarding Man United Football Club, however you want to shape it. But yeah, let's head to this quick break and we'll be right back.
Sports Social, now on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
We've got a brand new NFL season to enjoy, and that means all new episodes of The Nat Coombs Show, where I'm joined by some of the very best NFL broadcasters in the business.
Even when the roster is not stacked, he can still pull those wins out.
This dude accelerates through it. And I was like, did he really get through the hole that fast?
We get you up to speed on everything you need to know about America's game. The major news, big game previews, reaction to all the action, and plenty more besides. So join us for the ride. Just search The Nat Coombs Show on your podcast platform of choice.
All right, we are back. Michaela, we're discussing Man United. Obviously, you as Man United fan, we thought would give you the floor to shape the conversation. What is it that you wanna share? What address do you want to give to maybe either Man United fans or the rest of the league?
Well, I must say, I know that our season hasn't necessarily gone according to plan, especially with how many great players we've brought in this season. I think this season is actually going to be a really good season for United, especially looking back on previous seasons with obviously the new addition of our new co-owners of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Eons. I think they've done massive things for us already. I mean, new training facilities and discussions of building stadium and adding on to it and fixing things within our stadium. I think that's uplifted the entire squad and also colleagues. They brought in, they didn't just bring in players. So they brought in backroom staff and coaches. Having Ruud van Nistelrooy back in a United team, training our attackers. I mean, I'm looking at, we're playing now at the moment against Coventry, and looking at that right now, we're winning 3-0. And we're starting to take more of our chances, and I think that's all down to the fact that obviously Ruud van Nistelrooy has been helping our attackers really relish the chances, and I think that's what's been a huge issue with us this season. Is yes, we get sloppy in midfield, and I think that's where our major issue was in midfield. But having Ugarte now been brought in, I think he is going to be a massive addition into our squad. I think he's going to clean up quite a bit of those mistakes. And I think we're going to build from the back really well and start relishing our chances more. It's just a matter of if we're going to end up finishing them or not. But like I said, Ruud van Nistelrooy has shown that his work is working. And I'm feeling very positive. This is the most positive I've actually been as a United fan in the past 3-4 years. It's been tough, especially post Sir Alex. I mean, what Sir Alex Ferguson did to our club was unbelievable. I mean, the titles, the community, everything. He just dripped aura. So we desperately miss him. But in saying that, I know our fan base can be quite split with the whole Ten Hag in or Ten Hag out. But me personally, I think the fact that one of the main reasons why we never do well is we never stick to a manager long enough to actually get their style of play and the players that they need in, and not enough time to actually produce something. But I see really good things from Ten Hag. Yes, some of his tactical things I question sometimes, but overall, I mean, 2 trophies in 2 seasons, that's massive. I mean, we haven't done that in years. So to have that back is amazing. And I think, yes, like I said, the fact that we haven't necessarily won all our games, I do think in certain games we were unlucky. Okay, against Liverpool, we were just not great. We were carved open. And I think that was mainly due to Casemiro not having the greatest game of his career. And we all know how legendary Casemiro is. It's just unfortunate that day wasn't his day. But, you know, I think the other games, I think we were like unlucky. I just think we're not finishing off our chances, and that's just sad. But I think it's starting to change. The fact that we won against Southampton 3-0, 3-1, no 3-0, yeah 3-0. I know that the penalty saved from Onana absolutely turned our game around. It like kicked us up the butt and made us realize that we weren't great. But it's in us. We've got it. We just need more consistency within the game. But I'm feeling very positive this season.
There is certainly optimism, and it started to come in, you know, as you mentioned, when the new owners started to come in, or co-owners started to come in. I think you can always tell whether or not a club is heading in the right direction by how the opposite fans react to it. This is probably the first time in a good while where I'm starting to see opposition fans lift their heads a bit when it comes to Man United and are a bit more cautious around them, because it does look like they're starting to put things in motion where they're starting to make the right steps and starting to all pull in the same direction. I guess, unfortunately, the Ten Hag situation is still a bit 50-50, I would say, in terms of whether people want him to stay or go. But in terms of everything else, as you mentioned, rejuvenating the training ground, looking to, you know, either fix things at Old Trafford or build a new stadium, fixing things in terms of getting football heads into the football club, not just the Ruud van Nistelrooys, but higher up in terms of management of off the field stuff, I think is important for Man United, because we know the potential. That's the thing. Rival fans know the potential of Man United. If they're firing on all cylinders, it's a club that's very hard to stop, because they are so powerful in terms of from a commercial perspective, revenue perspective, branding perspective, not just with the world but with the players. You know, if you mention to a player, come play for Man United, that means something. Obviously, in recent history, maybe it hasn't meant as much as it did under, say, Sir Alex Ferguson, but there are ways to get back to that. We've seen a Liverpool get back to that with the Jurgen Klopp. It can happen. And I like what you've mentioned in terms of just allowing a manager to properly build their identity and be at the club long enough to be able to do that. Ten Hag's winning trophies at the moment. It's not always going to go perfectly well, especially when you've got, you know, like a Man City with a Pep Guardiola who are dominating the Premier League at the moment. It's very hard to win the Premier League. But are the clubs showing improvements? Are they moving in the right direction is what I always want to ask when it comes to coaches. And it seems like Man United are doing that. So much to the chagrin of me being a Liverpool fan, it does look like you guys are heading in the right direction, and we'll see what Ten Hag can do this season. I thank you so much for that. Let's move on to the rest of our fixtures. We've got Southampton, obviously a team that is very familiar with Man United after coming off a heavy defeat to them over the weekend. They will be entertaining fellow promoted side Ipswich. What are your thoughts on what could be a very spicy game between two teams that were in the Championship last season?
I mean, the fact that they were both in the Championship last season is definitely going to be like, because obviously, okay, Ipswich have done a little bit better than Southampton, but not much. I mean, they only got 2 points on the board. But I mean, I think the fact that they both came up, I think it's going to be like trying to prove a point of who's a better team in the sense of coming up. So I think there's going to be a lot of essence on that. And listen, I mentioned about in my little speech about United, I mentioned how Southampton really were like giving it to United in the first like probably like 30 minutes of the game. They literally counted and counted and counted constantly. So I think Southampton definitely have that. And I mean, Dublin was sensational. He took on Delo big time. Like Delo was not having a good time with him. And he's so young and he's showing so much quality on that side. So I think Southampton have got some really good players. I think Archer, yes, he didn't have a great game, but he's a great buy for them. I think he can do some really good things for them. I mean, it's just that the only issue that's been with Southampton is they haven't been able to actually finish off their chances. It's not the fact that they aren't creating chances. It's the fact that they're not finishing them off. They're struggling to actually finish it. And I think that could be a bit of a problem when it comes to Ipswich. But I think it's going to be a great game. I think Ipswich will definitely not go into this wondering either. I think they will definitely push Southampton to the max, but it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be back and forth a lot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And as you said, it's two teams that came up will be wanting to prove that they're the better team. I note obviously that Ipswich got the better of Southampton in their games last season in the Championship, and obviously they've both made changes in terms of personnel to their teams. But a lot of the teams are a lot of the players are still playing that were playing last season. So I wonder if psychologically that is a factor, knowing that you got beat twice by them last season, knowing they finished higher than you in the league last season as well, whether or not that makes Southampton a bit nervous going into this one. I think the big thing for me with Southampton, as you mentioned, Dibling played really well. Hopefully he's one of those players that they're going to be able to showcase for the long-term future for them. He certainly looked fearless, which is always good to see, especially for a struggling team. And I know it's really early in the Premier League so far this season, so I use the word struggling very lightly. But to have a struggling team in the Premier League, when you get a youngster from the academy coming in and showing that energy and that fearlessness, it almost galvanizes the crowd, and then in turn galvanizes the rest of his teammates to be like, come on, we can go and do this. So that was really good to see. And obviously I think the penalty miss really changed the game in the Man United game, because I'd imagine they would have made it a little bit more difficult for United had they scored that one. I still expected Man United to go and win that game, but it would have been slightly more difficult maybe than the game that Man United ended up having on the weekend. I think for Ipswich, they started the season very, very unfortunately in terms of fixtures. I mean, Liverpool and Man City is not a great way to start up any Premier League campaign, but they've had some, a couple of games where it's still tough games, because every game is tough in the Premier League, but they've gotten 2 draws from their following games. It looks like they're starting to build momentum, and I think they're going to continue to build momentum. I'm going to go with a 2-0 Ipswich win. How do you see this game going? I know it's at St. Mary's, but yeah, I'm going with the 2-0 Ipswich win.
I know we mentioned that, like, obviously Ipswich they've beaten them twice in the past. But for me, the fact that Southampton haven't won a game this season, and then they getting there, and it's just a matter of finishing chances off, and I think the fact that the way they lost against United and the penalty miss might be a bit of a kick to the stomach. I mean, I'm actually gonna go for a Southampton win. I'm going for a 2-1 Southampton win.
Awesome stuff. All right, let's move on to Tottenham versus Brentford. I think Tottenham might be disappointed maybe with I don't know if it's necessarily lack of attacking prowess, but I thought they were going to be more gung-ho against Arsenal. I didn't see that too much in the game. I know some of the fans were not too happy with some of the lineup selections or maybe how the team played, but they will be hosting a very tricky Brentford side. How do you see this one shaping up?
Well, I mean, Brentford are not doing badly this season. I think they've had some great games. I mean, I'm really loving the way they're moving the ball around at the moment. I mean, listen, we all know that Tottenham, ever since I've watched Tottenham, their style of play, the way they create chances and the pace and the way that they move the ball around has always been attractive football and interesting football to watch. And I think Postecoglou is bringing that back into Tottenham, which is really great because they kind of went through a phase where they kind of missed that ever since Pochettino left. And I think, listen, I didn't think they played badly against Arsenal. It's just that they didn't do enough. And I must say, I was very disappointed in their attackers. I thought they could do a lot better. And I think that Brentford will definitely challenge Tottenham a lot, especially because of their style of play. I wouldn't say they're very similar, but they feed each other really well. So I think we'll both get some really great games out of it. But I think Tottenham will actually bring up the fire, especially considering they lost. And Postecoglou is saying that he always wins the trophy in the second season. So I definitely think that there's going to be something special coming through from them. It's just a matter of time.
I don't know if I would have said that. It just adds unnecessary pressure on you. But anyway, each to their own from that one. What score prediction are you going with this one?
I am actually going for a 2-1 Tottenham win.
Oh, nice. Tottenham get back up and running. For me, I've got a 2-2 draw, a very frustrating 2-2 draw for Tottenham. I just think unless Mickey van der Ven has the game of his life, I think the likes of Mbeumo and Wissa are going to enjoy the space that Spurs' fullbacks leave. And I can see Brentford getting a couple of goals there. But equally, I think Tottenham have to bring in a more robust attacking approach to this game than they did against Arsenal. And that's where I see this ending up being a high-scoring game. So I don't trust Spurs defensively yet. So I've gone 2-2 for that one. Let's move on to your team, Man United. They traveled to Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace. I mean, for Crystal Palace, they started the game quite slow against Leicester, end up being 2-0 down. Eventually salvage a draw, but that game sort of summed up the season for Crystal Palace for me. A lot of promise in terms of what everyone built them up to be. A lot of, they were a hipster's choice for many people of teams that could challenge, for those European spots. If you want to pick a dark horse team, they ended the season last year really, really well. It's not been great for them this season. 2 losses and 2 draws so far this season. But Mateta's gotten more minutes under his legs, and Nketiah's now in the team. They're starting to rumble. I'm not sure about them defensively yet. I think Anderson leaving ended up taking out a lot more than they thought it was going to for them. But I think there's optimism. And then when you have that optimism, you look up and you're playing a Man United side that's, I'm assuming, really confident at the moment. Obviously, as you mentioned, the Carabao Cup game as well, I think would confirm that back-to-back wins heading into this one. Surely it's a confident or a more confident Man United team than maybe the one we saw before the international break.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think United definitely getting their confidence and mojo back. I mean, I think the loss to Liverpool kind of also shook them, and I think that I think the main problem that United faced was in midfield, and there's 2 places. The midfielder. I think that we were being carved open way too easily. I think we finally sorted out our defense. So I think we're being carved way too easily open through the middle. I mean, not create with it. Our midfielders aren't pushing it up enough to create more chances for our attackers. And when they do, the second part is they've not been finishing them off. But at the moment, I mean, in the Carabao Cup, they seem to be doing really well. They're 4-0 up and they're starting to shoot really well. And the win against Southampton, that 3-0 win, I think it's definitely going to be another good game for United in the sense that they're getting their confidence going, their mojo going, and having Ugarte finally in the team and starting to play more games and get more minutes. I think it's definitely going to feed to the United fire. But in saying that, Nketiah, like you mentioned, I think he's going to be a massive player for Crystal Palace this season. I think he is a very good good play for them to get. And I think Eze is also going to have a great outcome for them this season. Like you said, I'm not too entirely sure how I feel about their defense. I think there's some moments in games where I'm like, oh, wow, that's really dealt with well. But there's also been parts in the game where I'm like, ooh, it's been very shaky. So I think this game is actually going to be a great game, especially considering United's history with Crystal Palace in the last couple of years. They're kind of United's bogey team. They always seem to they know the ways to balance United. So it's definitely going to be a juicy game to watch because I think Crystal Palace will have a lot more to offer, regardless of obviously the results. I think they're the type of team that start to do well later on as the seasons continue going on. I mean, we're only in the Gameweek 5, so I mean, it's still pretty early doors, but at the same time, results need to start happening. So I think this is going to be a good game to watch.
Definitely going to be a good game, especially because United are the away team. So maybe Crystal Palace have an impetus to be more adventurous in this one. And that will obviously invite the Man United counter-attack where they're really, really devastating at, in my opinion. That's their bread and butter. If United can continue playing a counter-attacking style of football, I think they'll do really well with the likes of Diallo and Garnacho out wide, Rashford starting to get in amongst the goals again. It could be a very spicy game. What score prediction have you got for this one?
So I'm in two minds about this. There's a part of me where I'm going to put my heart on this even, obviously because I'm a United supporter. So, but if I'm being honest, I don't think it's going to be a lot of goals in it. I'm on the fence. I'm between two scores. So I'm just going to tell you both scores, if that's okay. But yep. I am either going with a 2-1 United win or a 1-0 win for United.
Yeah, I've got 2-1 United win in this one. I think the defense for Crystal Palace is what worries me from their perspective. So I've gone 2-1. I think it could be a good game, though. I really, really do. Let's move on to a clash of styles in Brighton versus Nottingham Forest. Obviously, we saw Nottingham Forest get that fantastic result against Liverpool on the weekend. Mm-hmm. Brighton ended up having that maybe a frustrating goalless draw against Ipswich, but as I said, Ipswich are starting to get their feet into the Premier League quite firmly. And obviously, spoiler alert, from my perspective, Ipswich are the team that I'm hoping a Tad Predictable pick to support this season. We usually pick a team a couple of games into the season that we'll be rooting for the season. Last season it was Fulham. This season, my hat is definitely in the camp of Ipswich. That's the team I want the podcast to be supporting, but obviously it's a democratic vote, so we'll see what result we get there. But from a Brighton perspective, I believe their manager won Manager of the Month. They would have been buzzing heading into this one, 2 wins and a draw, but they get that frustrating draw against Ipswich. They're going to be playing a team that is going to let them have majority of the ball in this one, which is obviously the style of play that Brighton like to play under their new manager. Under most of their new managers recently, they do employ a possession-heavy style of football. But do you think Nottingham Forest take that confidence from the Liverpool game, apply it to this one, and come away with something from the Amex?
Oh, definitely. I think any team that beats Liverpool will always ooze some sort of confidence coming into the next game. I mean, I think that was a massive result for them. And I think also they've got some really good players this season. I mean, James Ward-Prowse is there. And I mean, he did really well. And also, my personal favorite from them is Gibbs White.
Yeah.
I think he's a quality player for them. But I must say, I think the fact that they beat Liverpool, I think that is going to just drip all the players in confidence, especially a lower standing team. So I mean, going into this next fixture, I think they're going to really bring it to Brighton. But in saying that though, Brighton, even though their frustration's going to feed their fire. So I mean, yes, they were held to a 0-0 draw, but Brighton have some quality style of play and players. I mean, Matoma, Danny Welbeck is like seeing the Danny Welbeck from years past. He's been doing well in recent years, and I think he's done really well with Brighton. I think he fits their team really, really well. And obviously, I also think Lewis Dunk's a quality player for them as well. So I think, and then tell me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, and if I do apologize. But Mte, I think, is a quality player for them as well. I think he will produce some wonders down the flank for them.
Yeah, they've got a plethora of really, really exciting players, and as you say, I think for me in this one, having watched Nottingham Forest closely last week and having seen what they've been doing this season, they keep games quite close. Brighton, yes, will have a lot of the possession, but they're going to have to move the ball a lot quicker to try and get Nottingham Forest out of their defensive shape that's really, really strong and really well disciplined. As you said, and then on the counter-attack, they've got those exciting players, the Gibbs Whites of the world, the Hudson-Odois that can come up, the Awaniyi's. They've got some talent, and obviously they lost Danilo, unfortunately, who I thought was going to be their player of the season this coming season. They lost him to injury for a good while. So that's unfortunate for them. So, yeah, I think the importance on the Matomas and the Mintes out wide is going to be important for Brighton in this game. But I've gone with the 1-1 draw. I just think Nottingham Forest are going to bounce into the game with the confidence from that result against Liverpool. They've not lost so far this season. Neither of these teams have lost so far this season. And I don't think either of them are going to give up their losing streak. So, I'm going to go with the 1-1 draw.
I'm actually going for what would be considered a bit of an upset. I'm actually going for 1-0 Nottingham Forest.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
They're playing well. I can see it. I definitely can see it.
I mean, I watched some of their games this season, and I've actually been very impressed with the way they've been playing. I think their team are gelling really, really well together. So I'm really looking forward to how they play. And also, one player that we didn't mention was Elanga. Elanga's, he's been coming off the bench, but in himself, he's a quality player for them. So I definitely, I think Nottingham's actually going to surprise a few teams this season.
And it's credit to Nuno for playing the players in a style of football that suits them. I know, obviously, maybe his reputation got tainted a bit when he went to Tottenham, but his style just didn't suit Tottenham. You mentioned earlier how, Tottenham like to play a certain, attractive style of football, which maybe is not quite what Nuno brings, but Nuno plays effective football, and we're seeing it with this Nottingham side, and they've embraced it, and he can do it at a Nottingham. Maybe it's a bit harder to try and implement that at a Tottenham, but yeah, it's really, really good to see. So yeah, we both seem to be quite high on them in that one. Let's move on to Man City versus Arsenal, the last game of this game week. It ends the season, the weekend off in a spicy fashion. And obviously, we're basically writing the title of this podcast as we've been going, aren't we? It's a spicy EPL weekend, this one. But Man City versus Arsenal ends it off. Man City, the trope is that they start seasons slow. They certainly haven't this season. Haaland has been on fire. They've been on fire. they don't even have Rodri yet fully up and running. They don't even have Foden fully up and running. I mean, this has to be quite ominous for the rest of the league if this is the Man City we're going to see this season. For Arsenal, it's game week 5. Is it too early to be saying it's a must-win game?
I mean, it's never too early to say it's a must-win game. I mean, at the end of the day, all games are already must-win games. But when it comes to two crunch teams that have been challenging each other for the past 2 seasons, I definitely think Arsenal are more the team that need to win it to prove it to themselves, because they keep fumbling it all the time towards the end of the season. And like you said, Man City generally build their way up into the season. They don't normally start off well, but the fact that they've hit the ground running this season is massive. And also one player that's come back to them is Gundogan. Yeah. I think that for Man City, that is massive. I mean, he was one of the best players throughout the years. I mean, he's a great player for City. And I mean, I think Arsenal, might struggle a bit in this match. I mean, they've got a few injuries and suspension of Declan Rice still. I mean, they're missing Odegaard. They're missing, Merino. They're missing a few players. I mean, you got to believe that's going to have to weaken Arsenal a bit, because, I mean, yes, they got the result against Tottenham, but I mean, it was a close game. I mean, it's not like they creamed past Tottenham. So you got to think that, is this going to be a problem for Arsenal playing against City? I think it's definitely going to be a fire game. I think Arsenal will definitely bring the heat. I mean, they will definitely not die wondering. That is for sure. And I mean, Man City have their weaknesses. I mean, they went a goal down really early in the game on the weekend. So, I mean, if Arsenal can find those weaknesses, they can easily just bring it to obviously Man City. I mean, Saka, I must say, I think he's a quality player for Arsenal, but I think we all expect more, and we all know that he can bring more to it. It's just, is he going to bring it against Man City in a must-win game, supposedly must-win game of the season? That's just the questions that I'm wondering.
And I think that's where the signing of Raheem Sterling becomes critical this season, because we've seen Saka being run into the ground, and he's then too tired to feature heavily in these big games. If they can manage Saka throughout the season, I think they can sprinkle him into these big games and he can have more of an impact, and we can see more of an impact from him. He's getting to that age now where we need him to start, controlling these games or having a really big impact on these bigger games, not just, against some of maybe the lower teams in the league. But yeah, I think for Arsenal, it starts and ends with Arteta for me, because in the past seasons, he's been okay to go and try and get a draw in this game in recent seasons and then win the league in other areas, to say, no, we don't need to beat City to win the league. I think City have been so good and have raised the points tally so high in the Premier League that you kind of have to go and beat them as one of the games that you need to go and win, because you need to get over 90 points just to be in the conversation. And as you said, which I think is very, very vital, is from a psychological perspective, if they can beat City, is that what then gives them the belief to think, we're going to go and win it this year. This is our year. And sometimes that plays a huge factor, even when a team's not playing well. Just knowing and starting to believe that this truly is your year, things just start to work out for you, and I think, if Arsenal can go and win this one, I think the belief they can carry into the rest of the season will be absolutely massive and will be crucial for them. But the injuries for me, Michaela, you've mentioned them, the likes of Odegaard, even, Tomiyasu, that's not there for depth, but a Moreno, Declan Rice not being there, if it's, the suspensions and stuff like that, those things do tally up when it comes to big games against Man City. I don't think Man City will get exposed by an Arsenal set piece like Tottenham did. You'd certainly assume that they won't, especially with how prominent Arsenal were with set pieces last year. I think City will make sure they train a lot for that in this game. I think City go and win this one. I'm going to say 3-1. It might sound harsh, but I think Arsenal are going to be down 2-1 trying to chase that equalizer goal, and that's going to leave them open at the back and City go get a third.
That's an interesting score. I can see the vision with that, to be fair. I'm not going to be too far off of you. I'm actually going 3-2 Man City, and the only reason why I'm saying that is I have a feeling Saka might have a game of his life against City. I think he has a lot to prove. And also, I must say, it's going to be amazing to see Arteta versus Guardiola. I mean, with Arteta growing under Pep, he's learned a few good tricks. And he's always seemed to know how to get certain things out of Man City's team. So I just, like you said, like we discussed, it's just the injuries and suspensions that worry me for Arsenal. So that's why I'm favouring City in this one. I mean, let's not forget Robot Haaland. He's been unbelievable. So I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be a cutthroat game for Arsenal, but unfortunately, I think City edge it 3-2.
3-2. Yeah, thank you for that. And that is going to do it for another episode of A Tad Predictable. Michaela, do you have anything you want to plug, put over, or promote before we wrap up?
I just want to say one more thing. Earlier when we were discussing, I think I said commentary instead of Barnsley. My bad. I haven't said properly.
No,
I've been studying. So that's why I did that mistake. I did know who were playing, but sorry for all the Reds fans out there. But if possible, I would like to put out there my X account, which was formerly known as Twitter. If people would like to check my page out, it's at Win Lose Man U.
That's Win Lose Man and then the letter U on. Yes. I still call it Twitter. I'll always call it Twitter. On Twitter, guys, definitely go and check that out. From my end, go and check out all the content on the EPL Index website. Their match previews, post-match reviews, player performances, all the news that you guys could wish for. Of course, there's the daily podcast show. It's the Two-Footer podcast with Dave Hendrick, where he discusses the hottest topics in football, especially in the EPL. Finally, also go check out the new flagship show that comes out on Sunday evenings. It's the Final Whistle podcast, where Nina and Ben host guests as they look back on the weekend of the EPL football. Obviously, we preview the weekend. They review the weekend. Go and follow this show on the Twitter page at A Tad Predictable. Go follow at EPL Index on Twitter. Subscribe to EPL Index podcast channel on your podcast providers. Give us 5 stars. Write some positive comments. That stuff really does help us out. I've been Tadiwa Chanakira. You can find me on the Twitter handle at Tad Predicts. A huge thank you to Obi Semenya. He's at John Empire SA, and Jody, she's at Spursy141 for our guest intros. Our producer behind the glass, Mr. Guy Drinkle. He's at Guy Drinkle on Twitter. She's been Michaela at Win Lose Man U. That's Win Lose Man and then the letter U on Twitter. And remember, Chisinga Peri, Chinoshura.
And still, Salah, oh, sensational! Son had a goal and scored a beauty.
Oh, what a strike from Yuri Tielemans. De Bruyne.
That is what Martinelli broken. Still going up. Oh, he's done it again.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
A great workout deserves a great reward. Treat yourself right with new coconut smoothie bowls made with fresh fruit, purely Elizabeth granola, and now creamy coconut. You earned it. Grab a treat you can feel good about. Only at Smoothie King.